Welcome, everyone. We are live on Nonprofit Problem Solver Podcast. This is episode 49, believe it or not. And I am live here with Monica Pitts, and we are going to be speaking about planning the end of year campaign. Yes, it is that time already. Just give me a moment to thank my sponsors, Yotme, this virtual events platform that we're using. Also, PodPro Audio, making professional podcasting easy. And our nonprofit partner this episode is Journey to Esquire. That's a Florida-based nonprofit that supports Black and minority student lawyers to get through law school. And so if you want to look at their website, journeytoesquire.com, hope you can support them. A modest donation will help not just contribute to the scholarship fund, but will also help the mentors support the students and meet with them on a regular basis. So it's a great cause to support. And thank you for that partnership. Okay, Monica, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you.
Good. Thanks for joining us today. So before we dive into the end of year campaign, I know there's a lot of topics and issues that you cover. Tell us a little bit about your background, your role in nonprofits, and any programs and offerings that you've got to share.
Well, my name is Monica Pitts, and I'm located in Columbia, Missouri. And since 2005, I've owned a company called May Create Design, and our primary stream of revenue is website design. So we do a lot of website design, and then we also do consulting and online marketing for people and all the little weird graphic design things in between, right? Because people need that stuff. And so we primarily serve nonprofits and construction companies. And the way that we've always had a philanthropic heart. We've always given artwork and marketing pieces to nonprofits since our inception, and a discount, which is kind of cool. But about 7 years ago, we were approached by our local community foundation, and they said, hey, we want to bring together all of our community's nonprofits and run a big year-end giving campaign through the month of December. That year-end giving campaign, we call it Como Gives. Last year, we raised I say we because it's like a collective effort, right? So the campaign raised $1.6 million for 142 of our local nonprofit organizations.
Wow.
So my role is to do the marketing and to train people how to run their year-end campaigns, and also to administer this website that intakes all of these donations. Yeah, we started training our local nonprofits about 4 years ago in an effort to boost their year-end giving results, and it's worked really well. We grow every year, and I'm just like empowered by the activity of teaching them, and then like seeing the results directly through donations. So as far as offerings go, like right now, you can always check us out on the Nonprofit Marketing with Purpose podcast, because we're always giving free tips and advice there. And we also have our year-end giving checklist for free right now that you can download on maycreate.com. And also we will have our 3 free Giving Tuesday email templates that we used to raise like $70,000 last year. And so we're giving those away too. So you guys are welcome to check any of those resources out. If you go to maycreate.com and click on nonprofits, there's a resources tab for you.
That's great. And your podcast comes out how often?
We publish most of the time weekly. Occasionally we skip a week. But yeah, most of the time it's weekly.
Yeah, I know how that is. Great. Thank you so much for that. Now, this timing, so obviously if you're listening to this later, you can listen to this anytime, and end of year comes around sooner than we think. But when you and I tried to decide exactly what we were going to focus on, the timing sort of shouted out, because it's actually September 1st today. And this is the perfect time to start planning for the end of the year.
Yes, absolutely. And like for our year-end giving campaign that we help run with the Community Foundation of Central Missouri, like we start back in May, and because there's so many parts to plan for all these nonprofits and get them onboarded and ready. So I know that not everybody needs to start in May, but we do.
Right. But so you can't really start too early, can you? You can't be over prepared. right?
Absolutely not. It's a magnifier effect. So all the things that you do build on each other, right, in your marketing and in your relationships. And so I don't know if you're ever not working towards a campaign, right? Whether it's
Right.
year-end giving or something else.
So if you haven't yet started your end of year campaign, two questions I want to start off with. One is, how long does the actual campaign last that you are preparing to run? That's the first question. So
Okay.
is it really like a month of December thing? Is it the last 6 weeks of the year? Is it the last quarter? Does it vary? How do you leverage in those Giving Tuesday type events that are there available for everyone? Can you explain that? Just answer that one first.
Yeah. Well, I have kind of an interesting opinion on that based on my experience running a month-long giving campaign. I mean, so before I give you my honest to goodness answer, I would say that it all depends, right? It depends on when your big events are. It depends on how much bandwidth you have as an organization, like what your team looks like and what you can and can't do. What I heard a few years ago from a lot of my smaller nonprofits is they were just straight up freaked out by the idea that they were going to have to campaign for a full month because they were not just campaigning and asking, they were also having to run their nonprofits. And
Sure.
so, like, their full time jobs became double time jobs. And they were like, whoa, we can't do this. And so, now when I run our year end giving campaign, I know when the money comes in because I see it. And so I benchmark our activities as a marketing team and where we spend our money on marketing around 3 days. So, what I tell my small nonprofits or people who are crunched for time or people is that I want you to focus your energy on really 2 to 3 days. The first one is Giving Tuesday. Last year on Giving Tuesday, we raised like almost $350,000. So that was like our biggest giving day of the whole month. And there's just so much energy around that. Other people are asking, like philanthropically minded people are already like it's on their radar, right? They know it's coming. So I feel like spend some energy there. Also, obviously,
Can
like
I
the day
sorry, just
before
to
Giving Tuesday.
interrupt you there. Sorry
Yeah.
about that. Just to put that into perspective, out of the 1.6 million that you raised last year in this initiative, virtually 20, almost 25% of that was on that one day.
Yes. Yeah. And
And
then
is
like
that what you would is that a proportion that people should look to as a standard metric? Like that's about how much people should get on Giving Tuesday?
if you're going to campaign all month long, then I would say Giving Tuesday is going to be one of your biggest days because it's going to be the first time that you ask generally if you're campaigning for the last month of
Okay.
the year. And some people are going to do it right away and do it, and then other people are going to do it all the way at the end of the month because they're last minute humans. And so the second big spike in giving that we see is on December 30th and 31st. And those 2 days we bring in about, well, I'm doing the math in my head right now, 360, almost $370,000 on December 30th and December 31st. So that's where that other 20% comes from, is those last 2 days. So I always tell
Wow.
my
So
nonprofits.
half of it, a full half of it is two of those days. One at the beginning of the month. Giving Tuesday is the beginning of December, isn't it?
Yep, it is. Well, it's the last day of November this
Uh,
year.
it's the last day of November this year, right? But it's usually around the 1st of December,
Mhm.
and a good launching point for a lot of end of year campaigns. And then right at the very end, the 30th, 31st is the second big chunk.
Yeah, yeah. And
Okay.
they do say that, like, when they send an email or when they do a Facebook Live, they do see a spike in donations personally, but I don't see them on our end in that big form, except for those 3 days.
Okay. So you're counting the 30th and 31st as two separate days.
Yeah, because I mean, so you'll get I always tell people, do your marketing before Giving Tuesday, on Giving Tuesday, and after Giving Tuesday. Between those 3 times, you're going to get a good chunk of
Hmm.
donations in. And then you'll campaign also, like emailing and doing social media and calling and asking on the 30th and the 31st. That's where I would focus
Okay.
my energy if I
Right.
did not have time to do things throughout the month.
Okay. So even if you nominally, so to answer that first question of how long the campaign really is, what you're saying is you don't want to miss Giving Tuesday. So nominally it could be a month, but if you're pressed for time or energy or resources, focus on the beginning and the end of that month around Giving Tuesday and then the 30th and 31st of December.
Yep, because that's when people are pre-inclined to give and do things.
Okay, that's great. That answered the first question. The second
Yeah.
question I had, again, just sort of generic question around campaigns is the idea of having a clear objective. And do you recommend or not to have a clear objective in this kind? And if so, what sort of objective, and how is it different from a campaign that might take place any other time of year?
I mean, I think you should always have a clear giving ask. People are more likely to donate if you ask them to contribute to something that makes sense, right? And I also think that your ask might differ between people that you have a good relationship with and people that you don't know very well. Because the people that you don't know
Hmm.
very well, they might latch onto a specific concept and be more willing to give to achieve this one thing that you're asking them for. And it needs to be simple and concise and straightforward. But then the people that love you, like there's certain organizations I give to every year, and you don't have to ask me, and B, like, I don't care what you use the money for. You're rock stars. Like, I'm going to give to you anyway. So it just depends on the relationship, I think.
Okay, that's useful. Okay, so if I'm a nonprofit who has not yet started planning for the end of year campaign, I got a sense where I might want to have a branded campaign or a purpose or an objective, particularly for newer people or people who I don't have a deep relationship with. Less important for my uh, well-known donors, and I want to focus on the beginning and end of December. Okay, so I got that. Now, let's go right into the title itself. Then, where do I start then after that with my end of year campaign? If I've got a completely blank slate,
I
besides
always
other than
tell,
just call Monica.
oh, other than call me, yeah, because I don't know if I exactly call myself a campaign planner, except for this one really big one I do every year. I do help people with their marketing, though. Okay, so the first thing I always do before any campaign is I take inventory. And what I mean by that is like everybody is starting where they are, right? You might have all these ideas about how you want to promote something, but the only resources that you have are the ones that you have, right? So I
Mhm.
think that people should look in their pantry for the things that they can use to market their campaign right now. And I mean, because that's how you don't blow your marketing budget. It's the same way with food, right? Like if you went to the grocery store every single day to cook dinner, you would like completely erupt your budget. But if you go to your pantry and you're like, oh, look, here's macaroni and cheese, and we're going to eat this with chicken nuggets. All right, got this. That's just a time saver, and it's also a money saver. So you look in your pantry and you ask yourself, like, what do I have that I can use right now? So that could be anything from last year's social posts, or like I'll use some social media examples. Last year's emails, social posts that you did throughout the year that are totally amazing. What were they about? You could use those again as part of your year-end giving
Mhm.
push. Maybe you don't put them out on social media again if you're not careful or if you're not comfortable with that, but you could put them in your emails or put them in your story, right? And then you can also think to yourself, like, what do I have? I always like to look at processes, right? So, um, one of my organizations is the Audubon Society. They have like a hiking trail that people go use. So they put up signs outside the entrance to the hiking trail that's like, hey, like QR code, go donate. It's our year end giving campaign. Like, if you love this trail, then donate here. And it's didn't cost them any more than printing a sign, but
Right.
it was a great resource for them. So just looking at the different processes and entry points that you have to your organization, and how can I leverage those to gain some momentum during the year-end giving season. So I would say take inventory. What do you have? Yeah.
So that would be a good time to, for example, look at the most engaging social media posts, things that you found that have worked in the past. There's no need to reinvent the wheel or recreate all these assets from scratch.
No, I always reread them because I want to make sure that our voice is correct, that we're asking for the right thing. But, because we always get bigger and better and improve the way that we talk about our organizations and what we need from people. So I think you should read it for sure. But
Oh
that doesn't
yeah.
necessarily mean you need to revamp everything. Like, that's really time consuming.
Right. You might want to tweak some things, of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hmm.
But okay,
Yeah.
so we start with an inventory, as you said.
Yep.
Look at what we've got, what assets we got, what can we reuse,
Mhm.
and then I suppose would the next logical step, be then filling in any gaps?
Yeah, so you're right. What you would do next is look and say, like, what do I want? Like, let's say that, and like a lot of my organizations have mailing addresses and phone numbers, but they don't have email addresses right now because they've been around for a really long time. So I'm like, all right, well, if what you want to do is start emailing, well, this year your campaign might look a lot like direct mail and phone calls, but for every phone call, you ask people for their email address. And in every direct mail piece, you can say, hey, sign up for our mailing list, and then to think to yourself throughout the year, how could I get people's emails? Like, I always tell the people that have storefronts, like, have them sign up for your email list as they're checking out, right? So just all those little pieces, you're like, hey, what do I need to have? What do I want to have? And then you can use this experience to build that for your next campaign.
Right. Okay, that's great. So you've got filling in some of those gaps, and then what's next?
Well, I should probably have gone back to the beginning of like setting a goal for your campaign. I mean, because the amount of activity that you do is going to be directly relational to how much money you need to raise and the assets that you have, right? So if you
Hmm.
have a very small pantry, then you're going to have to do a lot of activity to raise even a small amount of money, right? Unless you've got some really big, generous donors in there that you can call up and ask. But if you have a nice filled out pantry and your goal is just to raise $1,000, then you could probably send one email and get it done and you're good.
Yeah.
And then if you have a well filled out pantry and you want to raise $13,000, then you're probably going to need to do more activities to get there, right? So
Yeah.
it's based on your assets, and your end goal would be how you choose how much work you're actually going to do in your year-end giving campaign.
And then you have to balance that bandwidth that we talked about at the very beginning, focusing on the beginning and the end. Just is there any type of organization or any situation that you've seen over the last few years where Giving Tuesday does not have that real that effect, that explosive launch pad for the end of year? Is there excuse me, anybody for whom it doesn't work well?
I can't think of anyone. I mean, it's it's a great day of momentum, and it does not hurt to ask. I don't know why you would not. Even
Right.
if it just
Okay.
brings in a couple $100, like, you didn't have to spend. I mean, so like, one example is, because I was thinking, well, maybe schools, right? Because it's a weird time of year and people aren't in school. But then I thought back to a person I interviewed on my podcast, Amy, and she runs or she's the head for a school foundation, and they made like $2,500 or something like that in 3 emails on Giving Tuesday. And so I'm like, well, I mean, clearly it works.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
so
I
it's
just
not.
get some. I think I've had last year, had a sense of a few sort of grumbles. It's just on the margins of people feeling it's sort of oversaturated, and their donors are being inundated from left, right, and center. And is there is there not necessarily an anti-campaign, but is there a way of doing something just slightly different that makes you stand out from this massive of crowd? And I don't know whether there is or not.
That's a good question. I mean, my experience is with a whole group of nonprofits that are doing it together. And so for us, our message is support your community. And so our donor base is, they know they're going to get these emails and that this is the day that they need to do this, and they're not offended by it. I would just hate to miss out on the opportunity. I mean, that's like, should you start a podcast? Should you start a blog? Should you have a Facebook page? I mean, there's a lot of Facebook pages, So like, you have a very specific purpose. You have a specific message. People are philanthropic that day. Just don't write an email that bothers people, that stinks. And I think you're okay. Like, write from the bottom of your heart, ask from the bottom of your heart. You have the right to ask. I don't know why you wouldn't personally, but it's just
right.
Me.
So but what I hear you saying is that the standard rules apply. It still has to be well written communication, whether it's direct mail, whether it's a scripted phone call from a volunteer, or an email, or however you are reaching out and connecting to that donor base. You want to do so in an authentic way, which is engaging and interesting and captures the mission of your organization. So all those you get all the tick boxes really for good marketing communication still need to apply. You can't
Absolutely.
just lazily throw it out. So, oh, it's Giving Tuesday. Guess what? We'd love to receive your money. Send here. It's not going to get you very far.
Yeah, the energy in equals donations out. Like, every year, I can't tell you how many people we have in our campaign that they won't campaign. They just wanted the exposure from it. And then they get a little disgruntled because there's a number of organizations that raise like $50,000 or more in this campaign. And it's because they work it hard, and they have every year. They didn't raise $50,000 their first year, but they've done it for 7 years, and it grows every year. And they try something new every year, and then they use what they had last year every year. So it's like, it's a growth thing. But if you don't put any energy into it, and you don't think about it or craft something that people want to read, then no, you're not going to get donations, and you're just going to be kind of static.
But for those organizations trying to work out exactly how much time and energy to commit, and I imagine as your collective of nonprofits grows each year, you get new people in who perhaps not done a whole lot. What is your advice to them about how much time, what they can actually get out of it, whether it's a really worthwhile investment or not? How do you convince them?
Well, that's a good question. So I feel like what I would do, what I tell them to do, is take the things that you would be doing anyway. You're already going to be posting on social media. You'll already be doing your newsletter. You'll already be doing your event or whatever you're doing, right? You're going to be transacting with people. So now we're just going to put a focus on Giving Tuesday, or a focus on year-end giving, right? So you don't have to always increase your activity. You just have to adjust the focus of your activity to show them this thing. So instead of just posting random whatever stories that you have, you would be like, thank you so much, for all this. We're doing great things with your money. This is a great place to invest to make our community a better place, right? And thank them, and then lead them into, hey, and it's Giving Tuesday in a few weeks. So it's not necessarily that you always have to do more. Sometimes more is actually not beneficial because your audience just gets overwhelmed. It's that it needs to be focused on this thing that you're moving towards. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I would always tell them to focus on the thing that they're most comfortable with to start, and then try something, maybe one thing new each year, but don't do all new things. That is just overwhelming.
Right. Well, for everybody, just to pull it off, and also for your audience.
Yeah.
Because they like that familiarity. But I think the another important message I hear you saying is that it's not an instant lottery win. It's something that accumulates over time. And again, I think if you're communicating to an established donor base that is familiar with what a communication from you looks like, they will come to know, as part of the cadence, if you will, of communications from you, that end of year is one of the things that you do.
Yeah.
And getting Tuesday or what have you is important. And so they'll come to expect that from you.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you ever have issues around end of year campaign? I know it goes the other way around, where people say don't start anything at this time of year, or too early in the calendar year, right after end of year, because they want to preserve that end of year gift giving, and so they're concerned about cannibalizing it. Do you ever have concerns the other way around, when people perhaps haven't done very much with end of the year, and they think, oh well, we don't want to do too much because then it will take away from other campaigns that we have either just finished, or we're finishing, or we're in the midst of, or we're about to start later? Does that happen?
I mean, we do have a number of nonprofits that will have big galas and fundraisers and stuff through the month of October. And so, what I always want them to do is talk about how they're going to do this thing. Like, just let people know, right?
Tell people in October that Giving Tuesday is right around the corner.
Yeah, exactly. And the people that go to the gala may or may not be donating again on Giving Tuesday, but there's a lot of people who aren't going to go to your gala too, like for so many reasons, right? So just because you're having this event here doesn't mean that you're not going to collect a different group of people over here. And
Right.
maybe, especially for bigger organizations that have like multiple purposes or multiple programs, usually, I mean, your gala, yes, it goes to support maybe multiple programs, but you could focus on one for Giving Tuesday if you wanted to. I think there's a lot of different ways that you could spin it, because your audience isn't always the same, especially for big nonprofits. They have a big audience that gives for lots of different reasons. So maybe you focus your October on one reason and you can focus your Giving Tuesday on another reason. It's okay. Like I
So
can
you
see that
segment
though.
your base, you know who's attending which events, and that sort of thing. And the other big one I see that comes in occasionally is the idea of starting a capital campaign, and how that might interact with annual giving, because it's often the same people that you start a capital campaign with, who are your bigger or most reliable end of year annual givers. But let's not go down. That's another path entirely. Okay, so in terms of preparing for end of year, we've got our goal and our sense of how much time and energy we're going to put into it. Again, with a focus on either end. We've looked at our inventory, our pantry, what we've got to hand that we can leverage. We might have some things that we want, or some gaps we want to fill. Okay, then what comes after that?
I start looking at my team at that point. I realize that they are part of your assets, but you have to figure out who's going to fill the seats on your bus to get this done. Or if it's
Mm-hmm.
all you, then you probably should be starting in like June or something like that. So that way you have time for it all, because you have another job, right?
Right.
But yeah, so I would look at my team and I would try to pair like that, the things I'm going to do and the things that I need, with people whose strengths lie in that
Yeah.
area.
Strength
I
matching.
find that I'm going to get the best response from people when I ask them to do things that they already like to do or that they're good at doing. That makes it easy, right? So if
And you'd
somebody comes
include
to
board
me,
members in that too, of course, wouldn't you?
yeah, because like the other day I had a guy who helps with a lot of fundraising in our community. He's like, "Hey, Monica, will you come and give blood?" And I was like, he wanted me to be a what did he call it? A high profile donor. And I was like, I don't know how I ever made it to high profile, first of all, but second of all, every time I give blood, I pass out. So the answer is no.
Right.
But every time before then, he has asked me either to host an hour on a radiothon or to do an aerial routine for an event. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll do all those things, because those are all within my wheelhouse. But I can't be a high profile blood donor because I won't be awake.
Right.
So
Right.
anyway, hearing people with like what they're good at, I think is important.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So team matching, making sure that you've got the right people. And again, this is a good way to iterate back to what your assumptions were about the time and bandwidth and energy that you've got. and whether you're focusing on the Tuesday or the 30th or 31st or anywhere in between. If you've got a bigger team than you perhaps expected, and you can move beyond the Giving Tuesday and the dates at the end of the month, are there other points in the month that are really good, like right bang in the middle, like the 15th, or is that just too crazy a date when schools are ending and all sorts of other stuff's going on?
I mean, we always talk to people around the middle of the month to give them a campaign update, tell them thank you again, like show them that, things are happening. I also like to talk to people right before they leave for vacation, like check this off your to-do list, give before you go, or like if you can't give monetarily, give the gift of conversation. So I give them like a bunch of awesome things that were accomplished throughout the year by our nonprofit participants, and I'm like, hey, talk about one of these things at the dinner table, because this is pretty cool. Like, let's spread this positive message.
Or all these parties you're going to be going to the next week, or the family members you haven't seen for a while.
Yeah, talk to them about awesomeness, right? So those things can happen.
I think that's a great idea. That you can, at the middle of the month, you can update people if you've got the data, or at least an indication of how well you did during Giving Tuesday, and saying, okay, final push for the rest of the month. You can give again, or here are some points that you can share. I think it's a great tactic.
You can bring in like people who are recipients of your service, or even do it simply. So one of my clients is an autism center, and they do fundraising for a research center. So they'll have their recipients of their services make cards and take pictures of them, like have a story that might go with the card, and tell people that throughout the years and throughout the month. So just showing people that, they're making a good decision and investing in your organization. You make a difference in the universe. And I know one thing that we're going to try this year that the Community Foundation director thought of is we're going to have like a mid-campaign push where we're going to have an award, like a monetary award that we give to the nonprofit who raises the most amount of money in like this specific amount of time. So it's like a 3-hour window in the afternoon, and we're going to go on Facebook Live, and we're going to be like, hey, whatever organization earns the most money in the next 3 hours gets an extra $1,000 from us. Get it? So that's kind of a fun idea too. Like if you could have a donor who has matching funds or with a lot of connections that's willing to campaign in the middle of the month, you could definitely build some awareness that way.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking is matching. How successful is it end of year to find, say, a corporate match or a board member or a key donor who's prepared to do a certain amount of matching? Have you found that to be an effective tactic in end of year?
Yeah, certainly. Especially if it's a person who has a philanthropic like friend base or family base. So what I would say there is go and look at the people that usually donate at this time of year for you, if you have those records, and be like, okay, well, this person donated $1,000. Well, they were going to donate $1,000 anyway. Really, again, probably this year if they've done it every year. So you could reach out to them ahead of time and be like, hey, on Giving Tuesday, would you be willing to match donations? And, then you can give them all the things that they need to be, a successful, we call it peer-to-peer fundraiser for you. You could invite them on Facebook Live. You can give them exactly what to put in the email. You can give them like the exact social posts, just like you do with the podcast. So I think it's a great idea because they're probably going to give anyway. And then that gives you some more momentum.
Right. Okay. Any other tactics like that you find that work to fill in between the beginning and end of the month? Like, so we've covered matching, a communication to update on Giving Tuesday and make that last push, providing bullet points for conversation. Any other things that you train your nonprofits in that have that extra time or bandwidth?
We do a lot of encouraging for peer-to-peer campaigns because they have such a limited staff to work with. And so when they spend their energy managing their volunteers who are running their own campaigns, they end up with additional people that they would have never met before. So they're building out their donor list and funds that they would not have had before. So
Right.
we try to encourage people to find peer-to-peer campaigners who will do challenges or who are like willing to, some of them, do matching funds, but then others will do cookies or a recipe or something that people really want from them, right? So one gal raised, I can't remember, like I want to say $5,000 last year by letting people pick. If they donated $200, they could pick what color she dyed her hair for a month in the next year.
Wow.
And she was going to dye her hair those like colors anyway. So she was like, this is easy. And then, she was posting on Facebook with trolls and stuff like that. And it was really cute. But that campaign helped that organization maintain momentum throughout the month because she was talking to people. So if you can kind of strategically have your volunteers put in some effort in different times of the month, then you can keep the momentum rolling if that's what you need to do. If you have the bandwidth to do
Well, it
that
gives you a
too.
lot to report upon as well, doesn't it?
Yeah. Lots to report upon, lots of data to sort through and figure out. And
Well, I'm just thinking just social media posts, like this person's doing that person. That's, a lot of ways of getting in front of eyes and, in a fun and engaging way. Would you recommend that this is a good time of year for people to do merchandising sales because it's a giving season anyway, with Christmas and Hanukkah, or the end of year with like calendars and those sorts of things? Are those generally successful or not necessarily worth the money?
I think it depends on what your merchandise is. Like if it's a great gift thing, then you could do it. But I also feel like, and I actually just did a podcast with my friend Jamie Friedrichs because she's a fundraising coach. And so she's like always all about, definitely thank people. And you can give them the tchotchkes as thank yous, but you don't have to give them the tchotchke to get them to donate. And a strong year-end giving campaign, in her opinion, is not based around premiums. It's based around the awesomeness that you do for your community and the people that you serve. So if you are running a year-end giving campaign and you're asking people for monetary donations without a premium, then I would not confuse the message by also sending them like an order form for mugs or t-shirts.
Right.
However, if you're not going to do a direct ask campaign, then maybe you do a campaign selling a gift. And it all depends on what your organization is, right? Like if like one organization I work with is all about sustainability. So they could be selling a sustainability living kit, and that might be a great Christmas present. But if you're the PedNet organization that is all about biking and trails, that's going to be a little harder to connect during the winter in Columbia, Missouri. So
Right.
depends.
Right. Yeah. Again, these are all ideas that need to be reflecting your mission, your donor base, the way that you engage your community. It can't just be some random pick from a hat sort of to add to our campaign. That won't work. So we're the sort of idea generation stage. The last thing I wanted to cover is whether this time of year is any good for encouraging the recurring monthly donations, or if that's again not a sort of just confuses the message.
No, I mean, I think that you can make your message whatever you want it to be. A lot of like two of our highest earners do their membership drives through our website. So they are doing like this annual membership drive that starts through our website, through the Como Gives year-end campaign. I think that you just have to be clear in your message, right? So it's not about like I don't know if there's a wrong way to ask. You just have to decide, what are you asking?
Right.
Don't make it too complicated, and go forward. So if you want to do mugs and sell mugs, that's your ask. If you want to do like perpetual and like monthly giving, that can be your ask, or just give a donation, that could be your ask. Because I think it's fine.
Right. Okay. So there's different ways of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not. But it's this time of year is not a problem for encouraging those recurring monthly donations for the year ahead, for example, if you can incorporate it into that messaging.
I think you can ask for donations the way that you want to ask for donations. However, like I have not tested the monthly giving thing during this time of year because our campaign is all like in this month long window, right? So there
Right.
is no recurring giving going on in my universe.
And
But
that's why I
I
was
like,
asking about the confusing of the messaging. If you're really talking about an end of year, it's here, it's right now. It can, you can see how you could confuse the message if you then offer monthly donations.
mhm. I mean, if you send them to a page, and a lot of people will actually that has the ability to give monthly donations or a one time donation, that can be their decision too. I don't think
Yeah.
it's bad. I mean, you could be like, you know, give the gift of whatever all year long this year, I, starting right now with $20 a month. It could
Yeah.
be, it's however you present it, I feel like. And if it doesn't work, by all means, don't do it again. But
Right. It's look, you got to be willing to experiment. Is that
exactly.
then, I think, um, just in sort of pulling this to a gentle close, as you train 142 nonprofits. Obviously, you don't train them all every year anew, but as folks come on and they learn and grow and so on, is this idea of experimenting and trying something new one of the key lessons of end of year?
Yes, that like for a lot of people, this campaign is the experiment for them,
Yeah.
right? Because it's their first year. But most of our organizations return year after year, and they build on that. I'm stumbling, but I just got done interviewing like 6 organizations about how they ran their campaigns last year and what they did and what they didn't do, or how they wanted to get better. And most of them said that they always try one thing new, if and just check it out and see how it goes. So I do think that it is kind of like getting your feet wet with any campaign, though, right? It's not just year end giving. Anytime you're going to do a campaign, you can try a thing new. Just don't do everything new,
Right.
or you'll be in a hot mess.
Right. Right. Okay. Now you've got said you started the conversation with notifying us about some resources that you've got. Can you remind us what those are and how to get them?
Yeah. So right now we have available our year end giving checklist, which is free. It's out on makecreate.com. Also, our 3 free Giving Tuesday email templates. Those are available to you, as well as a lot of other resources. Like they're out at makecreate.com underneath resources, and they're free. And then this year we are opening up our year end giving training that we're doing with our local nonprofits to anybody who wants to join us. So it is a paid event. And this year, we're going to cover strategy, peer to peer fundraising, reviewing your data to make marketing decisions. And we have templates and schedules for social media and email marketing. And then
Wow.
we'll have support days. And so that is $49 for the event in the early bird, and then it'll bump up to $69 after that. So it'll be fun. And there's already 150 people signed up. So
Wow. When is that training?
it will open up on October 19th. And then
Okay.
it'll run through and be done on November 16th is our last like live support day. So it's like you have your on-demand stuff and your live support stuff. It's kind of fun.
Yeah. Good. Okay. So we'll make sure to promote that. And your advice is always available via your podcast.
Oh yeah, nonprofit marketing with purpose. And we have a Facebook group where we post when the podcasts go up, so that way you can not forget or get an email. It's there.
And aside from Facebook, what other social media do you like to use that people can find you on?
Well, personally, on Instagram, you're going to see me like twirling in the air and like dropping from the ceiling. So if you like that kind of thing, you can check me out on Instagram. But I'm also on LinkedIn, and we do have like a trickle on Twitter. But most of our energy, I would say, is on Facebook right now. So if you want to like direct message me, I would direct message me on Facebook because I probably won't see it most other places.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Monica, for taking us through how to think about the end of year campaign. Lots and lots of detail. And
Yeah.
of course, the training you've got upcoming, I'm sure will be really in depth and highly valuable. Let me just say thanks also to Journey to Esquire as our nonprofit partner. Check them out at journeytoesquire.com and help some aspiring law students get through their degree and get through their bar exams in Florida. That's been episode 49. Thanks, everyone, for joining the Nonprofit Problem Solver podcast. We're here every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, and we will see you next week.
Thank you
Take care,
so
everyone.
much.